I, I'm a community organizer with the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition, mainly organizing in the North San Mateo County area, Burlingame, Daly City, South City, San Bruno. Thank you so much for being here. I'll pass it off to Adina.
All right, Adina Levin with the Los Bay Area Friends of Caltrain, and all together we are part of TEAMC, which is the San Mateo County Transit Justice Coalition. Banded together first to help San Mateo County pass a transit funding ballot measure. And we are now here together for another transit funding need that you will learn more about. In addition to our groups, some other groups helped to put this together and get the word out, including Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County, Peninsula for Everyone, Menlo Spark, and some other groups that I am not remembering, but there are a lot of groups that are in the coalition that you will also learn about today.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so next slide here is the goal and objectives of this workshop. It's to educate you all about the public transportation fiscal cliff and action opportunities, like what Adina mentioned. By the end of this workshop, we will educate and inform you all about the Bay Area transit services that are at risk, identify impact areas relating to the transportation fiscal cliff, and also write a letter and or make a phone call about prioritizing Bay Area transit funding to elected officials and legislators. And for those of you who are in high school, put a thumbs up, and you will also be receiving 2 community service hours for participating in this event, and also completing the workshop activities. Yay! Okay, we have some high schoolers here. Great. It is not too late to tell your friends to join this workshop, so please spread the word. Thank you. And so what I will do is pass it on to Anthony for our Jamboard activity. And I will drop the link to the Jamboard in the chat.
So we want to hear a little bit about your experiences with public transportation. Sometimes we have positive ones, sometimes we have negative ones, like anything in life. So let's maybe focus on the positive ones today. You know, we also want to make sure that we are giving space, taking space. So, you know, if it's a really lengthy anecdote with a great punchline, maybe we can, you know, have that conversation another time, but something, you know, a little bit more brief, and I'll get us going here. I love the train. I think it's much better than sitting in traffic for hours on end. Most of the time, I just get a lot of my podcasting done on the train. I get part of my role in my job and in life. I'm always listening to things and always growing, and I hardly ever have the time to do that. And the train is kind of like a place where I am actively going someplace, but I can catch up on some of the things that I don't normally have time to. So for me, it's like a twofer, and it's a lot cheaper than driving. So that's mainly, you know, one of the reasons why I love the train. So feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand if you want to share why saving public transportation is important to you and what it means to have, you know, a public transportation system that works for you. So feel free. Anybody? And while we're waiting for our courageous people to unmute themselves and talk a little bit about why you like public transportation, why it's important to you to be here on this call, we're going to do a little Jamboard activity, kind of do a visualization of all this. Any takers? Would it be mean of me to just start calling out some people? All right, Danny raised their hand. Go ahead, Danny.
I use public transit quite often by South Bay standards. I mainly use it when I either don't have access to a car, or using a car would be really inconvenient. I use a lot of buses in the VTA, and I've also used BART or Caltrain when I'm visiting places in the rest of the Bay Area. My main issue with it is that it tends to be really not punctual, even in busy areas. Like I've been in situations where the entire place was crowded and there wasn't enough places for people to sit,
Yeah.
and there wasn't reliable service.
And does what happens when you don't have a place to sit? Does it feel less welcoming? Like what kind of feelings do you get when you're packed like sardines?
I'm fine standing. My concern is that if there's not enough service, you get late.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. That's why it's nice for employers to have some grace, right? If people are choosing to use an option that's more green and produces less emissions, having flexibility of being a little bit tardy or being understanding that it might take a little longer. That, being 15, 20 minutes late isn't
Correction.
the end of the world. Go ahead.
It's not just in the South Bay, although it's pretty bad in the South Bay. I've also had issues of delays on Caltrain and BART.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's across the board. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I was gonna say that sometimes if I'm going out to dinner and I know I'm gonna be having a couple of drinks, I like being able to take the bus or BART or the train, just to make sure that I'm staying safe on my way to dinner and back.
Great. Anybody else want to share their experiences with public transportation?
Sorry, not sure if it's reflected. I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Davey. You can call me a transportation enthusiast. I'm also engaged in housing activism in the Bay Area through YIMBY Action. Sorry, my camera is off. Started. Hi. Okay. Really quickly, I guess my relationship to transit started when I lived abroad. I've been lucky enough to live in both Europe and East Asia. Very transportation-centric societies and societies that work well. They're efficient. Transportation is very timely. I think the public in those countries understand the importance of good transit systems. And ever since I moved back to the US and the Bay Area, I knew that we deserve just as good, if not better, transit systems than they have. Not only do we deserve it, but I think we have kind of a global obligation to the rest of the world to really adopt and invest in transit. So I made that partially, a life goal to make sure that transit not only stays viable, but expands and help move society away from dependence and just over-favoring of cars. I am a non-car owner as well, and I'm trying to hold out as long as possible. I guess living in San Francisco, where I live right now, makes it easy. But yeah, very supportive of public transit, especially given, I don't know, you can call it a global perspective.
Absolutely. And you don't even have to go global to find, a well-functioning public transportation system. I grew up in the South Bay, so driving was everything. When I lived in Portland, I had a bus stop 200 feet away from my house, and I never drove while I was there. It's just a really big difference. Hey, Jeff, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm actually going to turn it over to my wife, Lisa, who takes public transit right now. She has some comments and things she wants to say.
I just wanted to say that I've taken public transportation from the South Bay, San Jose to Stanford for over 5 years now, coming up on 6. And Caltrain has been a pretty good experience, but I still had to drive 8 miles to Caltrain. If I don't want to do that, I have to use VTA light rail or a bus. And one of the frustrating things is that these organizations aren't coordinated. So the VTA light rail will come 2 minutes after the Caltrain has taken off, or the buses will be scheduled and the transit app will say that they're coming, but they will be just not show up. And so I'll be left high and dry. I was definitely left high and dry by the buses multiple times. So the problem is it's just not reliable enough to get to work on time at the same time every day. And especially if you have to transfer or use multiple systems. So that's all I wanted to contribute.
Thank you, Lisa. It was Lisa. I think that was right?
Yes.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing that. And I absolutely can resonate with that. I don't know how many times it's okay. It's about a 15 minute wait for the next one. So it's not the end of the world, but it would be nice if it was a little bit more aligned where I can hop off and then transfer onto the Caltrain. And I know that VTA to Caltrain transfer very well. Nicholas, go ahead. I think this might be the last one unless somebody else wants to raise their hand. Go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah. So I'm in high school and I don't own a car, right? I don't have a license or anything. And so I take the bus to and from school every day. I've been doing that for the past 3 years, basically. And so far I've been very impressed with the performance that Muni have been able to put on, because it's it's very reliable in my case. And overall, I think I really advocate for an increase and expand public transit, really just throughout the country. I kind of have a very similar vision to what Davey was explaining earlier, and yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Nicholas. I hope that you always stay that way, being in high school. We have time for one more, unless someone absolutely wants to talk. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next part of the workshop. I'll give someone 5 seconds. No? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone who rose their hand and shared their thoughts on public transportation, why it matters to them, and their experiences. Everyone's experiences are going to be different. I say that having a strong public transportation system is an equity issue as well. My grandpa came here through the Bracero program back in the 1920s. I have a lot of undocumented people in my family. And one of the first tools they have is a bike and a bus pass. And that's how they have to get around for a little while until they can, save enough money to buy a car in this, car-centric Bay Area. We want to make it so that that isn't the case, that first two tools, the bus pass and the bicycle, is the only thing they need to be able to sustain themselves and provide for their family. Alrighty, with that, I'll hand it over to myself, because I'm going to do introductions for our speakers. And I'm just going to do it in the order that I see it. Is that okay with everybody? With Jeff going first? So, all right. So we have Jeff G. He is the mayor and council member of District 1 in Redwood City. He was first elected to his seat in 2009 and re-elected in 2013. Jeff served as the Redwood City's mayor in 14 and 15 and served as mayor in 2012 and 2013. After stepping away from elected office in 2018, Jeff was elected back to the city council in November, representing District 1 Redwood Shores. Prior to his election to the city council, Jeff served as an appointed member of the Redwood City Planning Commission, which included a term as the commission's chairman. Jeff is also the former appointed member of Redwood City's Architectural Review Committee. He is also a board member of Caltrain and on the board of directors for Samtrans as well. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being here. I'll let you take the floor here.
Very good. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you, all of you, for being here this afternoon. It's an honor to just share some thoughts with you. My apologies, I stepped away for a meeting. I need to go back, but I know my colleague, Emily Beach, council member from Burlingame, is more than adept at carrying forward this workshop. And she's a great colleague and great advocate of transit in the Bay Area. You know, the conversation these days is kind of unique and interesting because as we come out of the pandemic, it's a different world and we're still all trying to figure out what it all means. You know, ridership is down for BART and Caltrain. The commuters doing something different. Not everybody's in the office 5 days a week. We're still trying to figure it all out. But until we can figure it all out, we have to have the space and time to get there. And so what is challenging right now is the fiscal cliff or the financial challenges that are facing our transportation agencies in the Bay Area. There's no question that, you know, having been at the Millbrae Gateway ribbon cutting last week, our economy grows where transit goes. And as the mayor of Redwood City, there's no question about that, as we've seen the renaissance of downtown Redwood City, you know, all the housing, the mixes of uses. And when we put the downtown precise plan together many years ago in Redwood City, we guessed that maybe 23% of the people that lived and worked in downtown Redwood City by the Caltrain station would not own a car and would not need a car. And we guessed wrong because we went back and looked and we actually surveyed people that lived and worked in downtown Redwood City. And the number was closer to 50%, which is phenomenal. It goes with some of the stories that were shared earlier in the opening discussion that people don't need to have a car if transit is reliable, on time, and can get you to the places that you need to go. So having those mixes of uses combined with transportation and public transit that's reliable, that's rider-centric, can make a huge change for the future region, for the riders, for next generations. But we have to get there. We need the time to get there. I'm honored to not only be mayor, but serve on a number of transportation agencies and currently the chair of the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority also. We're working now on phase 2 of the downtown extension. It's right now estimated to be about a $6.7 billion project. They take time. There's no question about how long they take. It's not easy and it's full of politics and property owners and obstacles to get to where we need to go. But it's that vision that you shared earlier. How can we make public transit work in the Bay Area? How can we make sure that people don't need to have a car to get to work, to get to school, to get to entertainment or night out? How can we make it reliable? That's the vision that we have to hang on to and then collectively work hard to get there. Hard means all of us working either in an elected role, an advocacy role, raising your voice role, spreading the word role. It's going to take all of us working together to get to that vision. And right now, given the immediacy of coming out of the pandemic, the financial challenges that all of us face is a big challenge to get us that space to get to work on that vision that is going to, and we will get there. We will get there, but it just takes time. Adina's heard my story. I'm honored to be on Caltrain and Samtrans, but my father was the first district engineer for Samtrans. So when he was working in Samtrans 40 years ago, the electrification of Caltrain was a vision. And here we are almost 40 years later, a year away, maybe a year and a half away from electrified Caltrain service. That's why I talked about that vision and that perseverance and that working together and that advocacy to get us to that vision. So again, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here this afternoon or this evening. I'm sorry I can't be with you the entire workshop, but I want to thank you for everything you're doing and are going to do, and hang on to that vision that you shared, because that's so critical to moving things forward. And Adina has my contact information. Be happy to talk with you or follow up or do an email exchange to answer any questions that any of you may have and how we can further get to where we need to go on public transit. So thank you. Thank you.
And thanks so much for your leadership in a tough time. We're going to go through, after hearing from Director Beach about a really important opportunity to talk to our state legislatures, but also the things that are happening to make transit better and address some of the issues that you talked about. And so, Director G, I hope that you will be hearing more from the people here in terms of really achieving that vision coming forward.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great evening.
Thank you. Okay. And that is so important. The idea of, holding on to that vision and persevering. And that's what we're doing here. We also have a really special city council person from Burlingame on the call, Emily Beach. She was elected to Burlingame City Council in 2015, and then again re-elected in 2019. And she served as Burlingame's 50th mayor in 2020. She believes local government must be effective, accessible, responsive, and sensible, and its representatives must consider every decision's long-term impact. Emily prioritizes affordability, sustainability, forward-thinking transportation improvements, and fiscal responsibility in her local policy work. She's also a board member of the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which is, if you don't know, my Santa Clara people, it's like their VTA in San Mateo County. And she's also a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for CCAG, the County City Association of Governments for San Mateo County. Councilwoman Beach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you all so much to Adina, to Anthony, to TEAMC, everybody who is here tonight. You folks are amazing to educate and mobilize people in the transit space. There's no way we would have passed Measure W without you, and here we go again for another really important moment. So thank you to everybody who showed up tonight. Everybody who's here on this call, right? We're all true believers. We wouldn't be sitting here figuring out how to help mobilize to address this fiscal cliff if we didn't believe that transit is important. Caltrain alone, what is it, pre-pandemic? Director G really appreciated his comments. I think took a million miles of driving, not driven, off the roadway by putting people every day on Caltrain, every day, 1 million miles saved. So it's so important for our environment, for reducing carbon in the air, and also for our quality of life. And for people who are not true believers in transit, even if they don't ride it, what would their quality of life be with people not driving transit? They wouldn't have a single parking space, and the congestion would be off the map. So everybody should care about this issue. Just on a personal note, I'm an avid cyclist, love transit. My family is very dependent on transit. We live in Burlingame, obviously. My husband works in San Francisco. My day job is in South San Francisco. Both my kids travel on Caltrain and bike and take commute.org shuttles or Samtrans or some combination of those to and from Caltrain to get to school every day. So my daughter is almost 19. My son is 16, and neither of them drive because they've never needed to. And it's part of our family culture that we get on our bikes and we use transit, and that's what we do. These are trying times, though. I mean, I really think recently, don't you feel like in the last few months with electrification, the final, the schedule changes, with trees falling across the railroad tracks, shutting down Caltrain. I know my kids were stranded down in Palo Alto Station for hours on end. I had to go drive down and pick them up at one point. We're starting to feel, single tracking happens. It's all for good reasons. We're investing, but there's some things that are unforeseeable. But I think we're starting to see when transit isn't reliable, how painful it is, right? I think we had a few stories earlier. It's frustrating. And for people that are trying transit and it doesn't work well, how are we going to get people to do more? And that's precisely the time when ridership is down and the economics are precarious. That's when we need to really invest in transit to keep it alive. There's big conversations. So I sit on commute.org board of directors. We don't have the ridership on the shuttles because of people working from home. There's routes that are being consolidated. This is the time where we need to really lean in and invest in transit more than ever. It's also a time, if you think about it, people are hurting in their pocketbooks, and maybe they're making decisions based on convenience, but they're also going to look at the price tag of the transit. If we don't subsidize and keep fares down, how does a family who's struggling with inflation afford to take Caltrain 2 stops from Millbrae to South City, for a $12 fare round trip. That it's economics in the pocketbook. So this is the time to invest in transit and make it easy, make it financially reasonable, and make it convenient. Just fundamentally, look, I sit on the Transportation Authority Board of Directors. We oversee literally billions of dollars of investments in infrastructure and programs and service, but transit should be subsidized. It should be subsidized deeply. It's a public good. And just in terms, the last thing I'll say, the last speaker talked about equity, so important. Another hat I wear is through the Express Lanes JPA, and there's an amazing equity program, right? People are getting a transit benefit for the first time. They can choose between a $100 free Clipper card, or they can have a fast track transponder preloaded with $100. For folks making $80,000, like $78,000 or less a year, 83% of them are choosing the Clipper card because they're transit dependent, and we need to lean in and make sure transit works for everybody. So I'm talking too much, obviously passionate about this, but mostly really appreciate grassroots action like this that is going to hear our voices loud and clear in the state legislature. Let that governor hear that we need transit. There's going to be pressure from other parts of the state that don't use transit. Why should we send millions, billions of dollars to the Bay Area? We're the economic engine of this state, which means we're the economic engine of the country. And I loved Director G's comment, economy grows where transit goes. We absolutely need to invest and save our transit. So thank you all for doing your part tonight.
All right. Thank you so much, Director Beach. And so having gotten this, like our personal experiences and the perspective of some of our leaders, want to quickly go through what the challenges are facing the transit system right now, and quickly move into some things that we can do, including right on this call, and things that we'll be able to do in the coming weeks and in the coming months to address the crisis, and also to take those steps to make public transportation better in the ways that we expressed some of the challenges that in using public transportation. So I'm going to share a screen. So while the screen is coming up, Director G mentioned a fiscal cliff. Why is that? So what does that mean? Well, first of all, it means that I'm on the wrong slide. It means that public transportation in the wake of the pandemic is facing some pretty significant challenges. When the shelter in place happened, ridership plummeted. When the people who were taking transit were people who had essential trips and essential jobs, but other than that, everybody else was staying home. And these days, transit ridership has come back. It's about 55% of pre-pandemic levels. And that's still quite a lot of people. Over 22 million passenger trips were taken on transit during November 22. Ridership is coming back at different paces on different agencies. And still, transit is essential for so many people who are going to, like as we said, to work and school, medical appointments and shopping. 70 million transit trips all around California, and traffic starting to come back. So people who drive experience that stress and travel on the roads. The fiscal cliff is happening because the federal funding that the federal government stepped in to make sure that transit kept running during the depths of the pandemic, so that people could take those essential trips and to keep the system going. That money is running out. And as that money runs out over the next few years, agencies around the state, 72% of transit agencies around the state, why does it say your screen sharing is paused? Can you see my screen? All right, I'm gonna have to share the screen, but again, what is happening is that as that funding runs out, agencies are facing.
Adina, it
Yeah.
looks like we see the whiteboard, not the PowerPoint slide.
Okay, I am seeing this error message that says that the screen sharing is paused, and I have no idea why. So since you have the slides, are you able to share those
Yeah.
slides instead and move on to the slide? And I will step us through this quickly, and I'll talk even as you bring this up. So the agencies that carried over 80% of riders in the Bay Area are the ones with the biggest financial challenges, including Muni, SFMTA, BART, Caltrain, AC Transit, and Samtrans. And so this is expected to be a overall financial need of about $6 billion around the state over 5 years, and around $2.5 billion in the Bay Area. And the risk could be severe service cuts, which would make it even harder to bring back transit ridership and recover the system. And so in order to deal with the situation, there is a really broad coalition with our Youth Leadership Institute, SVBC, with all of our partners who are gathering in meetings like this all around the state to hear what we can do and to speak up to the state legislators. Several slides forward, please. More forward. Okay, so if we don't do this, we could have a death spiral where the agencies wouldn't have money, they would cut service would be worse, less people ride, that would be terrible. And it's especially terrible because transit is so important, as we've heard, to address so many of our needs in terms of housing affordability and saving money and helping with housing near transit, avoiding traffic, helping with climate change, helping people with who have less money. Next slide. Almost 60% of people in California who commute on transit have a household income below $35,000, and over 500,000 of California households don't have a vehicle and count on public transit for daily needs. So it's really important to be able to provide mobility for all. Next slide. And as our leaders at the top of this call, and as some of us have said, transit is really essential for climate, and electric cars are great, but they will not get us to the amount of greenhouse gas emission reductions and pollution reduction that we need in order to achieve our state goals. So it's really important for climate and environment. Next slide. And we can't afford to lose public transportation in our area and around the state. There's places that had robust public transportation systems going into the car era that were ripped up and removed. And we haven't gotten back to the time that we had back then. It's really important to save what we have and to improve it. Next slide. So what is it that we're asking, and what can you do, including today? There's a massive campaign to seek funding from state budget sources this year for a multi-year commitment to pay to make sure that transit continues to run, and we make improvements to make transit better and help regrow transit ridership. Next slide. And there's our plans, especially in the Bay Area, where we've been working on making those kinds of improvements, including making fares more integrated and affordable, making service more coordinated and transfers better, making accessibility better for seniors and people with disabilities, and working together on transit funding. I'll give just one example, and then we'll go forward through this pretty quickly to get to the actions that we can take. So one thing that's really exciting along these lines that some of you may have heard of is a Bay Pass. That is a pilot all agency transit pass. And it's starting with public colleges and universities, including San Francisco State, UC Berkeley, San Jose State, and people, next slide, please, we used to have a transit pass, next slide, for only one agency. So at UC Berkeley, people who had an AC transit pass, or people in San Jose State who had a VTA pass, got access to the entire wealth of the transit system, BART and Caltrain, ferries, Transbay buses, everything, next slide. And what this is showing is that when people have access to all of the transit, they take transit 35 to 40% more than before, including using the agency that their first pass, they use that more. So someone in San Jose State who had a VTA pass will use more VTA in addition to having access and using more BART and Caltrain and other services. So this is one of the examples of something that helps make transit more convenient and affordable and helps regrow that transit ridership. Next slide. You can go through, okay, that is awesome that you experienced that at San Francisco State. The other thing that the region is doing some planning to make service more connected and to plan the future of transit in a way that makes it, historically in our region, we have 27 agencies and they have planned separately, and it makes it kind of clunky to get from here to there. And the new generation of planning is based on people helping a person get from here to there, even if they have to use more than one agency, more than one color of vehicle to get there. Next slide. And part of this means making transit more affordable so that people can use more of the system. Next slide. So this is, I'm up here in Napa today because the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which is a regional body in charge of coordinating the transit system. And they just have done some new polling showing that people across the region really support transit, which is great. Next slide. But people really want the system to be better in some of the ways that people talked about it, with the stories being more connected, more affordable, more frequent, and so on. So what do we do about this? Next slide. Next slide. So this is taking, so our campaign is focused at the state, getting funding from the state budget. And meanwhile, we're working on setting the stage for a regional funding measure to make sure that we have the plans and the funding for a well-coordinated and frequent public transportation system. So we'll talk about the actions we can take today, and then the actions we'll be able to take over the next few months. Next slide. So with that state budget, this is something that's happening very quickly now. On May 10th, the governor is going to have a budget proposal coming out. Today, the state Senate came out with their budget proposal, and it had some funding for transit operations, which was really exciting. But we need to have both houses of the legislature and the governor approve this. And the deadline to pass that budget is June 15th. This is soon, so we need to really take action. And the main action for that state funding, first of all, is to sign the petition. And we'll share it in the chat and also share it in the email follow-up. So signing the petition is not just to show that we have thousands of people who care, but if you sign up with the petition, you'll get information about actions you can take, including there's a state hearing this week, there's an agency next week. You'll hear about other actions that you'll be able to take in support of this campaign. And then the thing that we're going to do today, which is to focus on calling and writing the state legislators who need to put this funding into the budget. There's more actions we'll be able to take around the region, but I'm not including some actions to give input to a regional funding measure, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we will spend the rest of the time today focusing on reaching out to the legislators to get that funding from the state budget. And I will pass this back to Erica to help us with that piece.
Thank you, Adina. Okay, so in the chat, we'll stay together as a group. We originally were planning to do a breakout room, but it looks like I don't have that feature on this Zoom platform right now. So In the chat, I will add a couple of links that you see here. It's call your legislator or to write to your legislator. So go ahead and click on that. It'll take you to 2 different websites from the Action Network. When you call your legislator, here is a template that you can use. And then same with writing to your legislator. So all you have to do is just click here. And then there is a template here, and I would love for you all to tap into all of our discussions earlier on in this session and tie it to why this issue is important to you. And you can send your letter and also make the phone call. But I also added first in the chat was the petition. So those are the 3 activities that you can participate in right now. I can give you a couple of minutes. And Adina, if you have something you also wanted to add on for this activity, you may also share, but I will also just give us some time to work on this in a little bit, and then we can come back to a discussion and see what your experience was like. But
Yes.
Adina,
So the people are not in the office right now. So if you like leaving voicemails, they will take the message and it will count. And so, the thing to do in the next minute or 2 is to think about what you're going to say using the template. Why do you care about this issue? It's really important to put that into your own voice. Why you care, how this relates to your own experience, the experience of people, your friends and family, and your community. If you do not want to leave a voice message, and I hate leaving voicemail more than anything in the world, personally, you can call your legislator tomorrow, and recommend doing that. The people who take the messages are extremely polite and friendly and will welcome your call. Also, you can right now, without doing anything tomorrow, with writing your legislator, same thing. Think about what is your personal story. Why do you care? Why does this mean? What does this mean to you? What does this mean to you where you live, your friend, your family, community? Think about what those messages are, and you can click on that link and customize your note to the legislators. They really take into account hearing, and you can be writing as I say inspirational things. Our legislators know about this issue by now. They care about it. They think the right things, but because it's a tough budget year, they need to fight for it. And to fight for it, they need to hear from you and why the constituents care. So should people share out what it is that they're putting in their letter or in their call script? Or should we wait for a couple minutes while people think?
I think we can give them a minute. And for some people, they already shared why public transit is important to them. So, what you said, just write it down or leave it in the voicemail or both. And another thing, I used to be an intern that would collect those messages. Most of them were friendly. Some were not. So make sure it's friendly.
I will also just drop the link to the Jamboard again. So if you also needed some pointers, and it was only like 30 minutes ago when we talked about it, but if you need something a visual aid, there it is. So we can come back in 3 to 4 minutes, and then we can just debrief real quick on everything that we talked about today. But yeah, I'll give you some time. Okay, we're at 6:53. Trying to be mindful of time. And I did drop the link to this band, Krungbin, from Spotify. Thank you, Adina, for asking. Love them. I will bring us back. How did it go? Did we get to do the petition and the writing a letter at least, and then we're drafting a script for our phone call? Thumbs up if you're like working on it still. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Awesome. What's your experience so far? Do you find yourself like thinking some things, or do you want to like elaborate more on your story and like why this is important to you, or where are your thoughts leading you to right now? It's also the end of the day, so you can also share that.
I can speak briefly about my experience. I've just been writing about how important transportation was in general in my high school years, which I think is very easy to talk about since it was like very real, easy for me to see. But beyond that, I think I'm just taking a lot of the climate talking points, and I think that'll probably be the easiest to understand as a legislator, or at least like the most appealing perhaps, since it's like very popular amongst voters in California. So it's probably easier to get behind than other issues which may be more robust.
Thank you. Yeah, anyone else?
Well, I'm about to leave soon, but I'll say my what I kind of wrote about. I wrote something similar about how like as a high schooler, like if I had good public transit, and I do believe I do, having good public transit is just so easy. Just get to wherever I need to go, just without any need for a car or my parents driving me. I can just go wherever I want in San Francisco whenever I want, and support local businesses. And of course, I also wrote about the environmental impact of having good public transit, especially in a city where cars can be overused.
Excellent, Nicholas. Thank you. And I know you're about to leave, so just make sure that you send my well, I have your contact information, but I did send you my email, so
Oh yeah,
we'll get you your give me 7 hours. Yeah, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was great being here. See you guys.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I can read my draft that I'm working on, if that's helpful.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. And I signed the petition. So let's see. Okay. So I'm OG. Hello. OG Strogatz. I live in unincorporated Walnut Creek. I am concerned that Bay Area Transit is at risk of drastic cuts because federal COVID funding is running out. Effective, efficient public transit is crucial for me and my community. As a 70-year-old facing the prospect of declining driving ability over time, I am counting on public transit to enable me to participate in civic engagement and personal activities. As a volunteer progressive political activist focused on racial, social, environmental justice, and the climate crisis, I am keenly aware of the imperative to get people out of their cars and onto public transit so we can preserve a habitable planet and ensure access for everyone to work, play, and home. Please support multi-year operations funding for transit from the state in order to prevent massive service cuts and fare increases and to help grow back transit ridership. I mean, this is like my 5th Zoom of the day. There's nothing more important than this, really. There just isn't. So yeah, tell me what to do and I'll go try to do it. Thank you. Thank you for organizing this call, and thank you, Councilmember Beach, for hanging in there with everyone, and for your inspiring words, and also for Director G's inspiration. I mean, we so need electeds to demonstrate leadership and to model the way, right? I mean, I think so much of whatever is going to happen that will be good it's got to come from the grassroots. I just believe that in my soul, but it's like, you just feel like you're talking at a wall when there are so many, sadly, so many elected officials I encounter who it just feels like, wah, 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 wah. They really don't care. So people like you all in elected positions give me hope, and make me feel like it's worth another day. It's worth another public comment. It's worth another call. And the same for all of you, everybody out there doing their grassroots advocacy. I mean, that's everybody pushing from wherever they're sitting on the landscape. That's what it's going to take. So thank you all.
Thank you for your kind words. Your letter is amazing, and all those public comments and showing up matters. Trust me, even for the ones that it feels like you're going wah, 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 but it matters. It really does matter, and it moves the needle.
Okay, Eric, do you want to close out?
I got a jet to a 7 o'clock. Great to see everybody. I sent my letter, signed the petition, and we'll get the word out. Make sure, Adina, I'll keep amplifying on social media too. So great work, everybody. Thanks for mobilizing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, yes. Thanks so much to everyone for coming. And by virtue of signing up, you'll hear about what's next to do. It's really, really important. We're going to need to band together to get this done, save transit, make it better.
Thank you. We will be sending like a follow-up with just all of these resources as well. But as a closing, just wanted to remind and share with you these links. It doesn't have to end here. You can forward these links to anyone you know who takes public transportation and or cares about it. So please forward all of these informations and resources to them. I did add into the chat opportunity to volunteer as well as the campaign website. Please check them out. And if you're a high school student, please send me your contact information and I'll write a letter and we'll be good. Again, here is our contact information. I'm Erica at Youth Leadership Institute, and we have Anthony